can't come in here and do that.
What did I tell you? Gruff and grumbly.
Darlene?
If you watched WKRP in Cincinnati when it first aired, you already know it was one of the best shows on television. But even the most devoted fans missed things. Details buried in the set, the casting decisions nobody talked about, the real-world events hiding inside the storylines. Here are 20 hidden details you missed in WKRP in Cincinnati.
Excuse me a minute. So call Shady Hills today. Remember, they're just...
Detail 20, the name was a joke and almost killed the show. Before the cameras ever rolled, the show nearly didn't exist. CBS lawyers initially refused to allow the WKRP call sign because it was too close to WKRC, a real radio station in Cincinnati. Creator Hugh Wilson personally called the station to ask for permission, and WKRC agreed, recognizing that the show would essentially give them free publicity. What most people never knew is why Wilson chose those particular letters. He later told the Cincinnati Enquirer that WKRP was his cheeky nod to the word crap. As for Cincinnati itself, Wilson chose the city partly because it paired so naturally with the call letters, and partly because he wanted a sizable Midwestern city, not a New York or Los Angeles. He had never actually visited Cincinnati when he created the show.
What a sight, ladies and gentlemen, what a sight. The copter seems to be circling the...
Detail 19. The show was built on a real radio station in Atlanta. WKRP was never really Cincinnati. The entire premise, the characters, and many of the storylines were drawn from Wilson's time observing and working in advertising at WQXI-AM in Atlanta, Georgia, a top 40 station at 790 on the dial. Wilson was working as an advertising copywriter and account executive, not a radio professional himself, which gave him the perfect outsider's perspective on the chaos inside a radio station. Many of the people he encountered there ended up on screen in barely disguised form. Dr. Johnny Fever, for instance, was closely modeled on a real Atlanta DJ named Skinny Bobby Harper, who had actually worked at a Cincinnati radio station himself before moving to Atlanta. The show was set in Cincinnati. The DNA came from Georgia.
Probably looking for the dance studio upstairs.
No, I need to see my...
Detail 18, the entire cast was almost different. Before the show found its now iconic lineup, a very different WKRP almost went to air. David Cassidy, fresh off his years as a teen idol on The Partridge Family, was the producer's first choice for Dr. Johnny Fever. Cassidy turned it down. Howard Hesseman, who had been asked to read for the sleazy sales role of Herb Tarlek, declined that part and instead requested the opportunity to audition for Johnny Fever. He got the role, beating out several other candidates. Hesseman was himself a real-life disc jockey before he became an actor, which gave him an instinctive feel for the character's rhythms and his relationship to the microphone that no amount of preparation could have entirely replicated. Gary Sandy, who became the steady, level-headed Andy Travis, had originally been brought in to audition for the meek newsman Les Nessman. He was cast as the program director instead. Jan Smithers, who played the quiet and competent Bailey Quarters, had almost no sitcom experience at all. Wilson later said other actresses read better for the part, but they were acting shy. Smithers just was. Jan Smithers and Gordon Jump were the only two members of the regular cast who were the first choice for their respective roles, according to Wilson himself. Every other major character went to someone other than the person originally envisioned.
I can't show a film like that with Darlene around. Aren't you a little...
Detail 17. Les Nessman's bandage was a real injury. In virtually every episode of the series, Les Nessman is wearing a bandage somewhere on his body. The show eventually explained it as injuries caused by his enormous unseen dog. But the real origin of that bandage had nothing to do with any dog. Just before filming the pilot episode in 1978, Richard Sanders put down a briefcase backstage, stood up, and sliced his head open on the sharp edge of a lighting fixture. The wound was too fresh to cover with makeup. Wilson made a quick decision, put a large bandage on Les, show it getting smaller over the next few days of filming as if healing, and drop in a line suggesting he had tripped on the way to work. That line was later cut in editing, leaving the bandage entirely unexplained. Sanders kept wearing one in every episode that followed, and it became one of the show's most recognizable running details.
Do you dance, sir?
No.
Detail 16. Les also wore a wedding ring he shouldn't have. While you were watching for the bandage, there was another detail on Les Nessman hiding in plain sight. Les is repeatedly established throughout the series as a bachelor, a lonely, awkward man with no romantic life to speak of. But if you look at his hands in many episodes, he is wearing a wedding ring. It is never addressed in any episode, never written into the show's continuity, and never explained. Richard Sanders simply wore his real-life wedding ring to the set, and the production team either did not notice or did not think it was worth the effort to have him remove it.
She said no, Herb.
She always says no. Like, come on, it's the scrimmage, not the game. Come on.
Detail 15. The tape on the floor was one of television's best visual gags. Les Nessman worked in the open bullpen area alongside the rest of the staff, but he refused to accept that he didn't have a private office. His solution was to place strips of masking tape on the floor in a rough rectangle around his desk, indicating where the walls of his imaginary office would be. He expected anyone approaching his desk to knock on the non-existent door before entering. Colleagues largely humored him. In one of the series' best visual moments, Mr. Carlson approaches Les's desk and physically leans into the imaginary door frame before speaking, as if resting against a wall that wasn't there. It was a tiny piece of physical comedy that required the whole scene to be played completely straight to land, and it worked every time.
Just come on, just sit down there, and then let's just talk this thing out like reasonable adults.
Detail 14. The show was videotaped specifically to save money on music. One of the defining qualities of WKRP in Cincinnati was its use of actual contemporary rock music. Real songs by real artists, not library filler. The reason the show could afford this was a quirk in how music licensing worked in the late 1970s. Rights fees for songs used in videotaped programs were substantially lower than fees for filmed programs, a loophole that had been designed to accommodate variety shows, not dramatic productions. Wilson and his producers chose to shoot on videotape specifically to take advantage of this, which is why WKRP has a visual texture that looks noticeably different from filmed comedies of the same era. It was a budget decision that gave the show its musical soul. The payoff was significant. Because the show could license real songs affordably, the DJs on screen actually played music that listeners recognized from the radio. Bands that were just beginning to break nationally, Blondie, The Cars, Devo, Toto, The Knack, and others, had their songs played on a primetime CBS sitcom, reaching millions of households each week. For some of those artists, the exposure on WKRP arrived before their breakthrough, and the timing mattered enormously.
Atop the Flim Building in downtown Cincinnati.
Detail 13, the music rights expired and ruined years of reruns. The licensing deals made during production were not permanent. They covered a set number of years, And when those years ran out, the music could no longer be used in syndicated broadcasts without paying for fresh licenses. Rather than pay, distributors in the early 1990s began replacing the original songs with generic production music. In some cases, dialogue that had been delivered over background music had to be redubbed by sound-alike actors because the original recordings couldn't be isolated from the music track. It wasn't until 2014, when Shout Factory released the complete series on DVD, that most of the original music was restored. Even then, a small number of songs remained uncleared. For viewers who grew up watching WKRP in syndication through the 1990s, what they heard wasn't the show as it originally aired.
To come to us.
Look, don't worry. If Fairman's upset, we're gonna straighten this whole thing out.
Andy, listen. I want you to know I really like this.
Detail 12, Blondie's gold record was hanging on the wall. One of the most rewarding props to spot, if you know what you're looking for, is a gold record hanging on the wall of the WKRP bullpen starting in Season 2. It was the actual Parallel Lines Award from Blondie, given to the show's producers by the band's record label, Chrysalis Records. The show had featured the song Heart of Glass in a Season 1 episode weeks before the track was certified gold by the RIAA and before the album Parallel Lines was certified platinum. The exposure on WKRP was credited with helping drive early sales. Blondie and their label wanted to say thank you, and so the gold record went to the producers, who promptly put it on the set. It hangs there in the background of bullpen scenes from Season 2 through Season 4, visible in dozens of episodes.
Musicians, but maybe sing the jingle ourselves.
Can anybody around here sing?
Any jerk can sing. Now listen. These are the copy points.
Detail 11. Real radio DJs sent their station bumper stickers to the show. Scattered across the bulletin boards and wall spaces throughout the WKRP set are bumper stickers from radio stations all over the United States. These were not props sourced by the production department. They were sent in by actual disc jockeys from actual stations who had become devoted fans of the show. Radio professionals across the country recognized WKRP as the most accurate depiction of their industry that had ever appeared on television, and they expressed their appreciation by mailing in their station stickers to be put on display. The show received an extraordinary volume of letters and calls from working radio people throughout its run. Some wrote to correct small technical inaccuracies. Others wrote simply to say that someone had finally gotten it right. The politics between management and on-air talent, the power struggle between the creative and commercial sides of the station, the way DJs actually talked and moved and thought. Real broadcasters felt seen by a primetime sitcom in a way that almost never happens. The bumper stickers on the set walls were the physical record of that relationship.
Congratulations. Say something. Thank you, Mr. Carlson.
Detail 10, the closing theme, lyrics are pure gibberish, on purpose. The closing theme of WKRP in Cincinnati sounds like a hard-driving rock song with a vocalist singing indecipherable lyrics. Those lyrics are indecipherable because they are not actually words. Atlanta musician Jim Ellis wrote the music and recorded a demonstration version for Hugh Wilson and composer Tom Wells. Since he had no lyrics prepared, he simply hummed and scattered nonsense syllables over the melody. Wilson and Wells thought it was funny, a perfect parody of the way rock lyrics were routinely unintelligible on the AM radio of the era. They kept it. The opening line, according to a claim by producer Rod Daniel, starts with something that sounds like, "Went to the bartender," but everything after that is fabricated syllables.
DJ who's caused us so much discomfort over the years. Please make yourself comfortable.
Detail 9, the building on screen was a real Cincinnati landmark. In the opening credits and throughout the series, the exterior of the Flim building, home of fictional WKRP, is shown as a real structure in downtown Cincinnati. The building used was the former Cincinnati Enquirer building, located at 617 Vine Street. The official full name of WKRP's fictional home, used on-screen, was the Osgood R. Flim Building, a name that never appeared in a major story, but was woven into background details for attentive viewers. The show's title sequence also featured footage of genuine Cincinnati locations, including Fountain Square, Fort Washington Way, and the old WSAI-AM broadcast tower in the Price Hill neighborhood. The production also received help from real-life Cincinnati station WEBN-FM, which sent the show a care package of locally branded props to use on set, including pizza boxes from a local restaurant, Skyline chili bags, Little Kings, and Hudipole beer bottles, and an I Love Norwood bumper sticker. Gary Sandy, who played Andy Travis, even reached out to the Cincinnati Enquirer to get a Cincinnati Reds warm-up jacket, which became a recurring part of his character's wardrobe. The show was filmed entirely in Hollywood. The city felt completely real anyway.
Yeah, I know.
He wanted to approve the t-shirt promotion.
He's way out of line, Andy.
Detail 8. The Turkeys Away episode was based on an actual event. The most famous episode in the entire run of the show, in which station manager Arthur Carlson arranges for live turkeys to be dropped from a helicopter as a Thanksgiving promotion, not realizing that domestic turkeys cannot fly, was not invented from scratch. Wilson based it on a story he had heard from WQ's ex-Brew general manager Jerry Blum, who told him he had once been fired from a Texas radio station after a turkey promotion of his own had gone completely wrong. Wilson took the premise, amplified it, and handed it to writer Bill Dial to develop into a script. Richard Sanders, who played Les Nessman, delivering breathless play-by-play coverage of the falling birds, prepared for the role by studying recordings of Herbert Morrison's original Hindenburg disaster radio broadcast from 1937, which is where the "Oh, the humanity" line came from. Sanders replicated Morrison's escalating panic and increasingly broken delivery so closely that the connection was unmistakable to anyone who knew the original. After the episode aired, several real radio stations across the country launched their own Thanksgiving turkey promotions, though wisely issuing gift certificates for turkeys at local supermarkets, rather than anything airborne.
Nessman.
This is Les Nessman, your man on the scene here at the Pinedale Shopping Center where the excitement is mounting.
Detail 7. That episode also became one of TV Guide's greatest of all time. TV Guide ranked Turkeys Away as the 40th greatest television episode ever made. Within the WKRP context, it was the most popular episode of the entire run in terms of viewer response and fan mail. Ironically, the episode almost didn't carry Wilson's name. He wrote the script himself, but was embarrassed enough by its silliness that he used the pen name Raoul Plager in the credits. He had written it specifically to respond to CBS pressure to make the show more farcical, and he felt the result was beneath him creatively. It became arguably the most celebrated piece of television he ever made. The episode first aired on October 30th, 1978, Halloween night, and benefited from being broadcast in the strong post-MASH slot for the first time. That placement gave it a large inherited audience, and once people saw it, they came back looking for more. Hugh Wilson later recounted that he was visiting his father at Harvard Law School the following year when a group of students poured out of the student union still laughing over a rerun of the episode. The law students were exactly the kind of audience the network had never thought to target. They were watching anyway.
The result of the most cunningly successful sex change operation in
Detail 6. The show was pulled off air after 8 episodes, then brought back. The KRP premiered on September 18, 1978, in a tough Monday night slot against strong competition, including Little House on the Prairie and Welcome Back, Coder. Ratings were not strong, and CBS put the show on hiatus after just 8 episodes. Most observers assumed it was quietly being canceled. What saved it was a groundswell of support from radio professionals around the country, who recognized the show's authenticity and wrote in large numbers to express their admiration. CBS brought the show back in January 1979, this time in one of the best slots on the entire network, following MASH on Monday nights. That new slot changed everything. The show stabilized, found its audience, and finished its second season in the top 10.
Couldn't put you through that, John.
Sure you could.
Oh, no, limos are not your style.
Oh, come on. Let me ride with you. I'll sit in the front, okay?
John, there's something.
Detail 5. The Who concert episode was based on a real tragedy that happened 70 days before it aired. On December 3, 1979, 11 people were killed in a crush outside Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati before a Who concert. Of the 18,348 tickets sold for that night, the vast majority were for festival seating, general admission with no assigned positions, meaning whoever pushed to the front first got the best spots. Fans had been arriving as many as 6 hours early, and by the time the crowd surged toward the doors, thousands of people were tightly packed in a space that couldn't safely hold them. The band did not learn what had happened until after the concert had ended. Hugh Wilson was initially reluctant to address it on the show. Writer Stephen Campman argued that a sitcom set at a rock radio station in Cincinnati had no reasonable way to pretend the disaster hadn't happened. Wilson eventually agreed, and the episode was written and produced quickly. It aired just 70 days after the real event, on February 11th, 1980. The local CBS affiliate in Cincinnati initially refused to allow the episode to air in its market and denied the production team's request to use news footage of the candlelight vigil held for the victims. After network executives and the affiliate reviewed the finished cut, they found it handled sensitively and allowed it to broadcast. Gordon Jump, who played Mr. Carlson, ad-libbed a closing line about Cincinnati being a town of good people who would do the right thing. The writers thought it was exactly right, and it was written permanently into the final script.
I wanted to go with you. Herb? Why are you talking to yourself? No reason.
Detail 4. Jerry Springer was watching as a city councilman. At the time of both the Who concert disaster and the WKRP episode that followed it, Jerry Springer was an elected member of the Cincinnati City Council. He was among the council members who voted to pass the ordinance banning festival seating, an ordinance that Cincinnati enacted on December the 27th, 1979, less than 4 weeks after the Riverfront Coliseum deaths. That ordinance is specifically mentioned at the end of the In Concert episode in a title card, naming Cincinnati as one of the first cities to act. Long before he became famous for his talk show, Springer was a working Cincinnati politician who was directly involved in the real-world response to the tragedy that WKRP dramatized. He later said in an interview that the episode was entirely appropriate and that media reflecting the culture of the time was exactly what it should do.
Everything I can about your operation.
You would?
Yes. Then I will be able to write my story and solve.
Detail 3. Bailey Quarters was based on Wilson's own wife. The character of Bailey Quarters, the quietly intelligent, self-effacing station employee who gradually grows in confidence over the course of the series, was modeled by Hugh Wilson on his wife. He wrote the character to be reserved and soft-spoken, but sharply capable when she did speak, because those were the qualities he associated with her. When Jan Smithers auditioned for the role, Wilson said that other actresses read the lines better on paper, but they were performing shyness as a choice. Smithers, who had almost no sitcom experience before WKRP, simply was shy. Wilson cast her on that basis. She received Emmy nominations for the role and became one of the show's most beloved characters.
I got Andy and V. Oh, they're out in the car. I was telling them, trying to explain what you told me about being the best.
Detail 2, the show changed its time slot 11 times in 4 years. One of the less discussed reasons WKRP never translated its critical reputation into consistently strong ratings was the network's chronic instability about where to put it. CBS moved the show to a different time slot 11 times over 4 seasons. Audiences who had found the show in one place would tune in the following week to find something else and have to go searching again. Some industry observers and cast members later suggested that the show was also caught in a political struggle between MTM Productions and CBS, with the network preferring to concentrate its resources and goodwill on MTM dramas like Hill Street Blues rather than the comedy. The show was popular in syndication and in summer reruns precisely because those runs gave audiences a stable, predictable place to find it. The final original episode of the series, which aired on April 21st, 1982, actually ranked in the Nielsen Top 10 for that week. CBS canceled it anyway, citing the need to make room on its schedule for new shows including Square Pegs and Newhart. In the summer following cancellation, reruns of WKRP regularly appeared in the top 10, which led to some pointed commentary from critics about the network's decision to pull a show that was clearly still drawing viewers.
Important to Mother Carlson. That makes it important to me, Les. So you will not mention rutabagas on this station till after you've done the other story.
Detail 1, a real Cincinnati radio station. Eventually took the call letters. For decades after the show ended, the WKRP call sign remained fictional, a piece of television history with no real-world counterpart in Cincinnati. That changed in 2026, when a Cincinnati radio station rebranded and acquired the actual call, letters WKRP, formally becoming WKRP in Cincinnati. The station, running a nostalgic rock format called The Oasis, made the announcement nearly 50 years after the show first aired. The fictional call sign had become real. A station that had never existed outside a Hollywood soundstage now had a signal on the Cincinnati airwaves, playing the kind of music that Dr. Johnny Fever and Venus Flytrap would have recognized. 4 seasons, 90 episodes, 10 Emmy nominations, and never a single win. A show that real radio professionals loved more than almost any audience could, that kept getting moved around the schedule until the ratings couldn't survive it, and that ended up outlasting virtually everything CBS put ahead of it. What made WKRP work was the same thing that made it easy for the network to underestimate. It looked like a straightforward workplace comedy about silly people in a struggling building. But the details kept accumulating. The bandage that started as a real injury. The gold record that was a genuine thank you from a band. The bumper stickers mailed in by DJs who felt like the show understood their lives. The episode that addressed 11 deaths 11 weeks after they happened. None of that was accidental. The people behind WKRP were paying attention to the world around them, and they put more of it on screen than most viewers ever noticed. Now, you know where to look. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe. There's a lot more coming.